Hi there, and welcome to Connecting in the Virtual Classroom. My name's Rusty May. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to unmute you guys real quick, get a sense of who you are and why you're here today. Mary Ann? Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi,
How are you?
fine.
Are you an educator?
Yes,
Where?
Philippines.
Oh, the Philippines. Okay.
Yes.
How are things in the Philippines?
Um, Not really okay because of this pandemic, but we're trying to cope with it.
Okay. What grade do you teach? Are you a teacher?
Actually, I taught for 11 years and then I was promoted as school principal for 5 years now
Okay. And what grade?
for the elementary
Oh.
from preschool to grade 6.
And do you have a sense of whether or not when you guys go, are you still in school? Are you guys still teaching remotely? What's the situation with the school?
We're starting to plan for this coming school year because our school year will be starting on August, and we're preparing for online education.
So you have a feeling that the school will be closed down. It won't be the kids won't be coming in the fall.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, our government um decided not to have a face-to-face class. So the option left for the schools is to have it online or uh, what they call this like this one, or the children or the parents have the choice to have it through modules.
So you can either send the work home or they can meet online, like on Zoom, like this.
Yes, but one of the challenges for us for the school is not all our students are capable to have internet connections, the gadgets, like that. So we will be providing worksheets, and they will be asked to study it at home.
Inde Independently.
Yes.
Okay. Were you doing that currently, or were you currently doing something different than that? I
We
mean,
will just be starting those mode of learning. So it will be a big adjustment for the teachers, for the school, and for the children as well.
okay. All right. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Welcome.
Alvin, are you there? Hi, Alvin. Oop, let's see, get you unmuted. Alvin, are you there?
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, it's Pam. Hey, Pam.
Um, my name is Ellen, but my husband's name is Alvin.
Oh,
I am
Alvin.
a student.
Okay.
Okay, I am in school at Grand Canyon University, and I'm taking this class to learn more about virtual classroom.
Okay. Great. You're planning on being a teacher?
Yes,
Okay. What grades are you looking at?
pre-K.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, are they thinking, do you have any sense of where do you live? Grand Canyon is an online university, right?
Yes, sir. I stay in South Carolina,
Okay, so you're in South
and
Carolina.
the school. Yes, I work as a teacher assistant, but right now school's closed.
Okay. So you're working your way up to becoming a teacher, an actual teacher in the pre-K environment.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being with us. Uh, is it Kalia? Kalia? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Kyla? Let's see, they're not unmuting there. Let's see. How about Sara? There we go. Sara? Trying to unmute you and I'm not having any success. Can you try to unmute yourself? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. There you are. Are you there?
My name is Sahar.
Sahar. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. I apologize. You're visiting us from where?
Egypt.
Oh, wonderful. Are you an educator?
Yes, I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher.
What
I'm teaching
grades?
English. Grade 7.
Okay. Now in Egypt, I'm not aware of what's going on there. Are you currently planning on being virtual in the
The
fall?
same. The
Sense?
same. Look down. There is no school right now. But we try to do something online.
And so you'll probably go online in the fall?
Yes, I prepared these days for online course. That's why I need to know how can I make it more interactive.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here.
I need to-
I'm going to try again. Kalia, if you're there. See if I can get you unmuted. How about Pam? Pam, are you there?
I am. Good
Hi.
morning. I'm full-time employee at Milwaukee Area Technical College, working from home. I have a student support role, and I teach part-time for American Public University System online.
Great, thank you. How are things going in Milwaukee?
Well, Wisconsin was impacted by the hurricane yesterday, so that was very interesting. It ended up being a little further west and south, but we just had rain and high winds, but nothing terrible at all. But then there's just normal rain today in the forecast, so interesting weather.
Yeah, to get a hurricane in the Midwest is kind of unique.
Yeah, so that was the fourth time in history that was all on the news, everything about the hurricane.
All right, so you joined us today. You're working at a technical college and also at another in another situation. Are you teaching online predominantly?
Yes, at the technical college, my role is student support. So I provide online training for our students, and then I supervise the staff that provides support to faculty. So we are a college that just has been transitioning into the pathway model, and that was happening, just before the pandemic, and rolling out our pathways, moving away from the school of through the pathway of. So we were in a big transition, and now everyone's doing it from home.
And how's it going?
Right now, next week, I believe, the students who are not able to finish their clinic, mostly the laboratory type courses, we're having a staged return to campus so those students can finish their lab courses from the spring semester. And then we're implementing processes for the fall for those same lab courses to be offered. Also, we're looking at technology, trying to help the students that are in our, think of our technology pathway, everything that's the apprentices. So whether it's welding or HVAC or auto repair, how are these students going to be able to demonstrate those competencies, during this pandemic, where limited people can be in a classroom together, where you used to have a group of people huddled around, whether it be an air conditioning unit or welding or automotive, how can people demonstrate those competencies when they can't do that traditional teaching?
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot that a lot of the positive thinking in going forward is the idea of this 5G coming in, where a lot of this stuff you'll be able to visit this stuff virtually
Yes.
and still huddle around it, but huddle around it from the safety of your own computer. So
Yep.
it's interesting to see what's happening. I don't know how fast that's going to come in, but there's a lot of talk right now, especially in the technical colleges, obviously such a hands-on environment, that's going to be a necessary part of what we do going forward.
So lots of meetings, lots of conversations. Also, enrollment, of course, is down because students who have the technology gap, it's not just the ability to register, it's they can't come to campus, and then there's that technology gap, whether it's not having a device or not having Wi-Fi or just not having the skill set to learn online. So lots of
Yeah.
response to that.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us. Valerie, see if we can get Valerie unmuted.
Yes.
How are you?
I am good. How are you? Sorry,
Good,
I'm late
thanks.
to the meeting.
No problem. Thanks for joining us. Are you an educator?
I am.
And you, what grades or what level do you work at?
I teach in higher education at the college level for a Bachelor of Nursing Science.
Okay. And is most of yours in the past been face-to-face and now you're going virtual? Is that what's happening?
Yes. Yep. And well, we're not sure actually. we're hoping to be maybe at least hybrid. But I did want to I'm casting a wide net and looking at all kinds of resources and webinars as to if we have to go more face or more remote. Any tools available, I would welcome.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Let's see. I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'm going to say Julia. Is that correct? Close? Julia? Julia? Hulya? Is that?
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, Julia.
Julia, thank you for joining us. Where are you visiting us from?
Turkey.
Oh, Turkey. How are things in Turkey?
Yes. I am an academician at a university, and from March on, we have online classes, no face-to-face education, so the same like the others. We are trying our best, and our university is using one of those systems. I don't know, can I use the name?
Sure.
So there, I think Perculus or something
Okay.
like that. Yes, they are using that, and I am satisfied with that system. Of course, there might be some problems, but we are trying to handle that.
And are students active currently since March? Do you find that the students are interacting pretty well?
We have set schedule for the courses, so I become online, and sometimes I have only 5 students online, sometimes 20 students, but those things are recorded, so they can watch later on. And yes, but I'm sending homework for them for the assessment. I haven't chosen that option for assessment, test only assessment.
Mm-hmm.
These are all the things that I can say now.
Okay. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Teddy G, thank you for being here again. I'm going to unmute you if you're around.
Hey, Rusty, how are you? I'm good.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
So I'm going to feed, obviously we have a lot of higher education people here, so I'm going to give you the floor for a second talking about some of the things. Teddy has been to most of the virtual classroom sessions that we've had since the beginning, and has been a big help to me, especially in the higher education. I work in the K-12 environment, and Teddy works in the higher education in New York. So 2 things, Teddy. Number one, what's the sense right now with the protests in the United States and so forth about changes that need to happen in education first and foremost, because obviously that's where a lot of this needs to begin, is in educating not only in educating about the idea itself and about the challenges that we face, but also in the inequity that we see in terms of the results that we're getting in the United States, specifically with students of color. And can you speak to that a little bit, being in the kind of in the middle of it over the last few weeks?
Yeah, of course. Before I start, I want to introduce myself because I've been here several times, but many folks who are here may not know me. So my name is Teddy Johnfee. I'm currently an Access Service Manager at SUNY Geneseo, located in upstate New York. Most of my roles just deals with curating library collections to meet the needs of students and find ways to reduce the cost of students having to purchase books. So back to your question, right now the protest is still going on. We're currently in day 17. Obviously, they just laid to rest George Floyd yesterday, but in terms of updates with the higher education system, everybody kind of has their own plan. I recently heard that University of Southern California is going to have students on campus. As for where I'm working at and for other upstate New York schools or just schools in New York State, we really don't know what's going to happen. As for the protests, I think that's going to be a huge factor moving forward in terms of, okay, would there be an increase in COVID-19 cases? Would there be an increase in funding to universities? Everything is still up in the air, but I think there is a positive direction in terms of what's going to happen. We just don't have any final decision made yet.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, to see the confluence of these two events, and then like Pam saying, we've got crazy weather in the Midwest and things are happening all over the place. It's almost as if COVID's kind of taken a back seat to what's happening right now. And I'm wondering if how educators in your area and other parts are feeling about this just kind of sense. It just seems like a lot coming at the same time.
Yeah, I think the protest sort of bridged the gap between staying at home and trying to voice your concerns. Unfortunately, we have seen a tick in cases in, I think, half of the states in the United States. So that may be a huge factor into whether they want to reopen in the fall. But I think everything really comes down to funding, because as of last week, I actually got an email from administration saying that they're going to make budget cuts. They're not sure where. And I think that started with the adjunct professors, those who aren't tenured, who the university cannot afford at the moment due to budget cuts, are the ones who are getting the first layoffs. And then from there, they have to find ways to cut programs, study abroad, any sort of funding that can't be used for this fall are going to be cut. And there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know at the moment, even with the testing, how often do we have to get tested? How frequently should students get tested? And that was another factor that came up in my meeting amongst my staff members. Was there are 3 options for the fall semester where everything is back to normal, which I highly doubt, or we work at 50% capacity, which seems possible, but we still need to get funding from the federal government. And then the last possible option, which would be what we're doing right now, is everything is pretty much done remotely. And how would that work? And how would that be beneficial to the students and staff members as well as faculty?
All right, I want to bring Christy in real quick, and then I'm going to come back to you to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been working, because some of the higher educators, I'm sure, would like to hear about that. So, Christy, are you there?
I'm here.
Thanks for joining us today. Where are you joining us from?
California,
Okay, whereabouts?
Santa Maria Central Coast.
Okay, and you're an educator?
Yes.
And what level are you?
Junior high science.
Okay, and have you been teaching? So you started teaching remotely in March as well, because I believe California
Yes.
shut down all the schools. How was it
That's
going
right.
for you at that point? Science seems like a unique challenge to try and do remotely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. The whole thing was a challenge. The technology was a big challenge for me. Just going from in-person classes to all online.
Okay.
We weren't really prepared for that. I don't use a lot of technology in my classroom, so I've been teaching for almost 20 years, and I'm kind of from a different generation, so.
Do you notice now that you're getting more comfortable with it and you're finding it to be somewhat of a benefit, or is it still just kind of overwhelming?
I've actually learned a lot. It's kind of exciting. I'm not as mystified by a lot of it anymore like I was when I was watching everyone else doing it.
Right.
So I feel a little more comfortable with it. Of course, science is challenging to do online, and that they can do at home with the materials that are accessible to them.
Okay. Well, thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome.
All right, Teddy, so if you don't mind, if you jump back in and give us some of your points real quick, I'm going to bring up what I want to talk about today while you're sharing with the other educators in the higher ed, but this is appropriate across the board, I believe. Just give us some top points in terms of what's been working.
In terms of what's been working remotely, I think it's just having adequate online resources, depending on what institution or what school you teach or work for. You know, does the school have licenses to, let's say, Zoom or Google Hangout? Are you able to use resources from other universities? I know I don't teach at the moment, but because I work with students, I'm constantly having to show them, you know, you don't have to use everything by the university. You can always find other resources. One thing I learned as a graduate student was massive open online courses, which are pretty much free online classes that you can use. Khan Academy, LinkedIn Learning, YouTube Learning, all these are free resources that you can use to learn. And back to what Christy was saying, it is hard as an instructor or as an educator to not be tech savvy, but still have the knowledge. And I agree, it's difficult for a student to have the capability to be in a classroom and be able to grasp the knowledge and then all of a sudden be told, well, I have to do everything remotely. It may not be the same for them. I think in last week's discussion that we had, a lot of students do excel or have excelled with the remote learning, but not everybody's gonna fully grasp, okay, how do I go and do this assignment or this task without having a teacher there to help them? And the remote learning, obviously you can have office hours, you can have tutoring sessions, but it might not be as frequent because of the hours that you have to work and the hours a student may need you. So those are some of the issues that I think are going to happen moving forward. The other issue is, like I said, everything comes down to funding. A lot of students who I've been talking to need a job, you know, not a job post-graduation, but just a job to keep them afloat throughout the summer. We're going to enter July soon, and for students who might have signed their lease prior to the pandemic, they have to pay rent. For students who may come from single homes or who parents are laid off and now they're being pressured to work, that could be another factor that we have to be aware of moving forward, is how we're going to help the students not go through a depression, not go through mental health issues, but still be able to come back the following semester and at least try to excel or at least be up to par with what's being taught in the classroom.
Right. Okay, thanks. We're going to lead on Teddy a lot. He's a great person. Some of the things that I want to mention, a lot of you are new here, and I get the sense that a lot of you are looking for some tips. Some of this is stuff that we've talked about over the last 6 or 8 weeks that we've been doing this classroom. But in terms of what we're seeing that's working reliably online, whether it's at the the graduate level, not graduate, but the post-high school level, the levels in middle school and elementary school, are things like predictability, flexibility, connection, and empowerment. And the basis of this class, the basis of this show, was on the idea of connection before curriculum. And like Teddy just brought up, I think, especially in the United States, but I think all around the world now, what we're seeing with 17 days of active protests and so forth. And obviously this is a situation where we're looking at, the Black Lives Matter, we're looking at the idea of race and some of the inconsistencies and the inequity and the downright racism that exists between races and so forth in different areas. But I also think, and what Teddy said is very important, that this is an economic reality as well. Because what we're looking at, not only in terms of unemployment figures and all the other things that the COVID-19 has created, is that people that are in the lower economic brackets are the ones that are being affected the most. And because of the current situation, that a lot of those people end up being people of color. And so this is not only an issue of black versus white or whatever color it wants to be. This is an issue of green. And what Teddy was saying is important, because a lot of students will do very well in this environment, given the fact that they have the resources to make it work. Their parents are able to work remotely or are able to go to work. They have some resources, but what we've noticed over the last, since March, is the importance that the school system provides as a social structure to especially people in the lower economic strata, in terms of the food that we supply them and the ability to have a caring adult in their life and the ability to have a consistent environment that they go to on a daily basis. The mental health issues that are going to come out of this, the challenges that we're facing. A lot of higher educators have been asking about, you know, the kids aren't coming to class, they're not motivated, they're not, well, a lot of that has to do with some of the things that Teddy talked about. They're concerned about the bottom of Maslow's pyramid. They're concerned about food, safety, and shelter. They're not concerned about education at this point. They may be required to go out and get a job. They may be required to take care of younger siblings. Understanding our students, whether in whatever situation that we're in, and everything that we do leading into the fall semester, if we're going to be online or we're going to be in person a couple of days a week. The important part of this is understanding that everyone has experienced some sense of grief and loss from this, and to connect with the students first. And that's really, really an important aspect of this. And I'm going to ask if anybody has any ideas about ways of connecting. I know Teddy has talked about this before in several ways that he's done it, but Pam, for example, do you have any ways that you've been trying to connect with students online to stay connected with some of your classes? Pam, trying to unmute Pam, see if we can get a hold of her. Pam? I can't get you unmuted. Maybe she's not there anymore. How about Valerie? Valerie, have you been teaching online? Have you had anything that you've been doing in terms of trying to connect with the students?
I haven't been doing any summer classes, but we are doing advising and things like that with our nursing students throughout the university. And we're just basically through our learning platform, we're reaching out to them. For the students who we did work with in the spring semester, we were doing multiple weekly, either Zoom meetings or reaching out in that form. And also some just old-fashioned snail mail, sending them cards, just to let them know that we're still here for them.
And what kind of responses were you getting? What kind of concerns were the students having? I would think that the nursing field is probably one of the fields that's probably in a growth mode right now, but what were some of the concerns that you were hearing?
Well, a lot of them, you know, weren't planning on going to school while sitting in their house managing their children. So that was a large one. And the economic impact that was mentioned previously, some of them lost, if they had non-nursing jobs, supplemental jobs like working at Subway or things like that, then those, there were concerns there. But our university was very generous and worked with the students to support them financially in many ways. So we were very fortunate there. We also have a food bank out of our campus that the students were, and the faculty supports this. And so they were able to come even throughout the, the pandemic shutdown. They were able to at least do a drive-by to campus to pick up food sources if they would need that. And our counselor, we have a free counselor to campus students as well and faculty, and she was very busy with a lot of online sessions.
Great, thank you very much.
Hi, Rusty.
Chris,
I'm back. This is Pam.
hey, Pam. Yeah, I was just
away. I heard you.
Go ahead. We were just talking about ways that you found to connect with your students online.
So I always ran online orientations for students, which were very lightly attended. And we, did these in-person ones because we used the Blackboard LMS and all courses had content in Blackboard. So whether the student was in a truly online class, a lot of students at the lower technology level always had questions. So now I continue to offer these 2 to 3 times a week. And just a handful of students show up and we walk through everything and they ask questions. So I think students like that aspect of not having to go somewhere for help, that they can get the, you know, the technical help and support. And the other thing we're having though, it's the faculty. And I think an earlier attendee mentioned people who have been not using technology and now we're forced to use technology. That learning curve mirrors what the students are going through. So.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that we've had to acknowledge overall has been how difficult it's been for a lot of educators to catch up to this, given a week to prepare for this. So it has been an incredible learning curve for a lot of us that were, you know, had created a way of doing things, and now we had to go to a different form, and that's been very, very difficult. Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Christy, did you have any ways that you've been trying to connect with your junior high students? Ways of trying to stay connected, or what were you hearing from them?
We at our school, we had gone to a format last semester where we had 7 classes, and one of those classes was an advisory. And so we have continued that online, and that advisory class is basically getting to know each other and bond with each other so that the students will have at least one adult on campus that they see more often, and we spend a little more time with them, helping them kind of navigate through lots of different kinds of problems, social, academic. So we're still doing that online. We meet once a week, Zoom, and just play games and chat about what's going on. So that's kept us more or less.
Okay.
The participation that we don't get the participation that we would like. And also I ran a club before when we were in bricks and mortar, and I started that club up again online. And so I get a lot of students that are in that club that still come and meet and chat, and it's a music related club.
Yeah, it's a great way to stay connected with them. Thank you. Teddy, can you share some of the ways that you've stayed connected? I know you've talked about it several times.
Yeah, so similar to what some of the other participants had mentioned, I stay connected with most of my students via email or through Zoom. Usually we'll have either weekly sessions, or I'll just reach out and say, hey, you know, hope all is well. If you need anything, just let me know. And some students who I would talk to prior to the pandemic would just stop by my office, talk about sports, life, academics, postgraduate. Other students, however, talk more on a personal level. You know, my mom is, you know, going through a hardship. What can I do? Is there any other ways I can get more hours? Unfortunately, now the semester has concluded for about a month now. We don't have the means to hire any students or any hours available for them. So that's been the tough part, telling students, you know, stay positive. We're still trying to figure out when can we go back to work before we can hire students. And even then, I personally do not feel comfortable working with a student right now, because if my safety isn't assured, how can I assure someone's child's safety? And that's the other issue I'm having with trying to compartmentalize moving forward for the fall semester. Is if I'm working with an older population, yes, I have to social distance, I have to wear a mask, but work in a library, you're going to deal with patrons, you're going to deal with faculty, you're going to deal with staff, and you would hope that everyone you interact with abides by CDC guidelines in the United States. But if they don't, then you put yourself at risk. And unfortunately, we're seeing that happen where folks are forced to go back to work because they have no choice, while others have the luxury of staying at home. So reaching out to them through Zoom, Google Hangout, emails, text, phone call, whatever it may be, it helps, but it doesn't really solve the issue, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And I think that's really important. A couple of things that we mentioned earlier that, and it's important as educators to give ourselves a break and to realize that we're not going to solve this problem. And if you have students who are going to fall out right now, they're going to fall out because that's what happens. And you have to acknowledge to yourself that even in the concrete classroom that there are students every semester that fall out for whatever reason. And sometimes it's because they're lazy, and sometimes it's because life happens. And right now life has happened to all of us, and it's really critical that we give ourselves that a break in that regard, and that we also buckle our own seatbelt first, or like they say on the airplane, if you're going to put the mask on, put yours on before helping someone else. And you know, the idea right now in terms of what we're doing and everything that we're doing in the classroom about connection has to do with how we're preparing ourselves for that role as the lead educator in that classroom. What energy are we bringing to that? And so self-care is a priority. It's always been a priority for educators. We've been talking about it a lot more in the last 10 years. But right now it's absolutely critical because, like Teddy just acknowledged, there's some obvious fears associated with working with students face to face. And you want to help and you want to be there, and you've seen some of the situations, and you know that a lot of kids don't have the resources that they need. But you're also frightened for yourself. And as educators, sometimes there's a conflict there because we feel like, well, I'm a helper, I want to help, but I'm scared to help. And that's okay right now. And especially as we go into this fall semester prior to what I call, you know, the C day or whatever it's going to be, the cure day, when we have some sort of a vaccine or V day, that we have to realize that there is going to be some fear associated with that. And it's okay to put ourselves into set effective boundaries. This is something as educators, I'm a school counselor by trade, something that we're taught to do anyway, is to set effective, healthy boundaries with the students in our care and to acknowledge to them, yes, I want to help, but as Teddy said, we don't have money to hire adjunct professors. Therefore, I can't hire a student right now. And to be honest and open right now with our students in everything that we're doing. Obviously, Valerie was talking about her university having some tremendous resources and being able to provide some things that I think most of us probably can't provide. But the idea is to think about being able to do things that we can do to take care of ourselves so that we can be there fully when we are there. If we're going to be providing virtual classroom hours, and we're going to be providing other kinds of things, that we need to be okay. We need to take care of ourselves and have routines about exercise and trying to get outside and trying to lower our stress levels and different ways that we're doing that, having fun activities that we can connect with other people around, so that we're taking care of ourselves first. And that's absolutely critical. Any other comments? I've got Julia. Yeah, thank you for raising your hand. I was just going to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think my friends have talked about some of the ways that we can touch or get in touch with our students. I was lucky at that because we have been using Google Classroom since the beginning of the term. So it was a little bit easier for us to go into that online platform. So we have sent messages through the atmosphere, and we have also sent some links. It was so easy for us to share those things. And at the beginning of this COVID-19, it was very sudden. So most of us were afraid. Most of us were feeling that fear, like you have said. So in addition to those educational aspects that we have been talking about, that emotional support is very important. You have mentioned some of them, because our students sometimes feel that we are the leaders in that classroom. So they are thinking, and they are sometimes taking us as their role models. So we have to show something to them. We have to give them some kind of route in order to get rid of that feeling, at least for that, let's say 2 weeks, because for those 2 weeks in my situation, we didn't know what to do about the education, about the social life, etc. So I sent some messages in order to support them. I have also shown some ways for doing something at home individually. So spending that time fruitfully. I even took a photo of me having that puzzle 1,000-piece puzzle on the desk and saying that you can do these things, etc. So this part shouldn't be forgotten as well. I wanted to talk about that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anyone else, Sahar or Kyla, anyone else? I know Alvin is your husband, but I forgot what you said your name was. I apologize. Anyone else have any comments about connecting? Because I think what Julia actually said is so important, and a lot of the educators that I've been following who actually teach online on a regular basis at the university level, they talk about things like sending out daily you know, little pictures, like the ones that you see, the funny cat pictures, or little videos, or inspirational quotes, or things like that, that sending those things out every day just to be that leader and to be saying, you know, and I think it's important that we acknowledge those emotions as well. And yes, they will pass, but they are real. And so giving them a sense that you're dealing with it, and being honest about how you're feeling, and then also being very, very proactive in terms of reaching out to them and giving them something positive, something to look forward to, a reason to go to that class every day. If you start off your classroom with a funny video, and a lot of us think, oh, you know, that's not education and we shouldn't use electronics and we shouldn't be doing this. Right now, anything that we can use to kind of take the pressure off, and especially because the majority of the people who are really, really interested a lot in the protests and so forth, the 18 to 24-year-old group of young people who are looking at this, and I've talked about this before, one of the major concerns that a lot of young people have right now is, what does this mean for the future in terms of the opportunity to get a job? I mean, what's this going to look like? If 2008, if we just got back last year to the unemployment, or to the unemployment figures prior to 2008, how long is it going to take for us to get out of this? And obviously we've had some good news in the United States, and I don't know what's going on in other countries. Maybe it's not going to be as quick as that, but there's so much going on right now, and there's so many concerns. Is there a way that we can connect with them? Is there a way that we can, you know, really try to be honest with them about how we're feeling, and invite them into our classroom every day? Bring something fun, bring something interesting, be willing, like Julia said, about being able to show a picture of yourself doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. Or if you're doing Zoom, for example, you know, they've got the funny backgrounds. If you can get a green screen, you can put up a funny background in there, and I can give you an example of that if you've seen that. But you can obviously do that in Zoom. Some of the other options that they give you to change your background and to do something like that. Bring yourself in there, bring your hobbies in there, bring any of that kind of thing that is going to invite them into your classroom, because you are the leader of that classroom. And the only reason that they're coming there right now primarily is going to be because of you, and it's going to have less to do. We talk about connection before curriculum. Right now, they're looking for people that are going to bring something to them, and so that's really important that we do that. So, I think it's Sahar. Sahar, thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead. Oop. Let's see. Can you unmute? There we go. Go ahead.
Okay. The same point. When I talked to you at the beginning of this webinar at Zoom, that's what I'm caring about. How do I make my course interactive? I don't care, by the way, about the curriculum itself. I know the curriculum, I can use the curriculum of the students of school. What I'm caring about is how can I make it more interactive. By the way, these days I'm only searching for different games, different activities about how can I make, or how can I study, or how can I teach grammar, what we call it experiential grammar. How can I plan for teaching grammar? How can the students do it, apply and reflect the grammar itself? How can I make it real to their life? By the way, we have a school page for students where I think we have been talking to them daily on WhatsApp. We have we have also Facebook account. I used the Facebook update creating room. I think it's something amazing, and I like it. Facebook room. That's why my concern is about interactive. How can I know it's easy to build a rapport in classroom, but what about virtual or online course? That's the point. That's why I think I have to use different games, different activities, teach them experiential grammar. That's the point.
Well,
What
I think, go ahead.
Yes, it's it. That's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, and I appreciate that. One of the things that I would offer, you're teaching English, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I would say in terms of bringing that in, obviously you're doing a bunch of other things, but in terms of connecting with the students and making it more interactive and so forth, any of the stuff that, like, I'm learning Portuguese. We live in Portugal and my wife is Portuguese, so I'm learning that. One of the things that my tutor has me do is every day to write something about myself in Portuguese. And so anytime that we're talking about these kinds of issues and what's going on at home and any of the stuff that's in writing or any of the stuff that's in talking, to have them talking about personal stuff right now as a way of connecting. Obviously the games and all the interactive stuff is drawing them in. And another thing that we can do too is to get very, very personal in terms of asking them questions about what's going on with them, getting them to write about it. Even if they don't want to share it in the classroom, is finding ways to do that. Other ways that educators have been doing it, breakout rooms to allow students to get together and work on projects together. So maybe you have them write something together in a classroom and you put 3 or 4 of them into a classroom so they have a chance to interact with each other. And ways like that obviously are other ways that you can do that. But in the environment that you're in right now, and any of that kind of interactive sort of thing, is have them talking about their personal experiences. What do you think the future is going to look like? How is COVID going to change the world? What do you see happening in 10 years? Those kinds of questions that are personal questions, those tend to draw people into the conversation more effectively than just asking them to write about a book or something that they've read, if that makes sense.
We're doing that on WhatsApp, personal and private. But actually, we're not talking about COVID-19 or the virus. We're talking about our personal life, what I'm doing every day.
Great.
We try to keep away somehow from the COVID-19. That's the point. I'm trying to make them feel that's life. You have to keep active. You have to look for what are you going to do tomorrow. You have to read a story. By the way, they themselves, students, they created groups on WhatsApp. They have my personal account on Facebook. We follow each other. We comment. We like. That's the point. So we're doing a lot of things away from our online course.
Yeah, we keep them moving forward. You keep them positive. You keep them thinking about what they can do today. You think, it's not about what's going to happen 10 years from now. It's about what's happening right now. What can you do today to make it better?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Odette, I saw you joined us late. Are you there? Do you want to let us know, Odette?
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm skipping between meetings, trying to catch up with what's happening here and there. It sounded interesting what you were talking about. I just maybe slightly in response to Sahar. I teach French, and therefore the language teaching and the issues she was raising were quite relevant to me. And I saw somebody who was giving a talk, one of those webinars where the teacher of French was using Padlet, the app Padlet, to engage students in collaborating with each other while online. And she was making the point that maybe that encourages them to write, and that a lot of interaction, the sheer interaction of dealing with the technology was actually making them produce language as well. So it wasn't just about the theme that was the focus of the day, but it's also about just all that interaction about how we do things and where do we go, that helps to use the language. And she also mentioned that she doesn't actually correct any of the errors that she sees in Padlet, because she uses it to encourage people to participate and contribute and practice their written skills without necessarily being teacher-like and correcting everything that she sees. And I haven't tried it myself yet, but I'm certainly interested in that idea. So,
do you know what the website is? It atlas.com, ATLAS?
No, it's Padlet. I've just put it in the chat there.
Okay, so yeah, okay, that's it. All right, good. So yeah, Sahar, that might be something you want to check out. Thank you very much, Odette. Where do you teach? Are you Irish?
I live in Ireland, but I'm French, yeah.
Oh, okay. You picked up a bit of the accent.
Yes. I also came across another gadget that, where was it? Sorry, I don't know, I didn't prepare this, but it's an annotation tool. And again, I saw, this was on Twitter, I found this, an annotation tool, which means that, you find a text and you encourage students to use that annotation tool to more or less pick out, like, either you can ask questions to the students, or they can highlight different, maybe grammar, if that's what you're doing, and get some interaction going via that annotation tool, based on the text, and maybe focusing on grammar or focusing on the topics. And I would just need to find the tool again.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you'll share it in the chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, that's another thing that we talked a lot about too, is the idea of getting questions going, getting people talking, depending on your grade level. I know at different levels, Christy, for example, junior high school, it could be like pulling teeth to try and get someone to start talking. You have more luck if you put them into breakout groups. You have more options in terms of getting them talking, but anything you can get going to create the connection, and things like that. Some of the tips for teaching in the virtual classroom, I'm going to go through these. We've got a few more minutes before the end of this session. We'll be doing this again next week, and we can talk more about this as well. I kind of had a feeling that today was going to be a little bit different in terms of what I had prepared, thinking more about what was going on with the protests. But it's really important, the questions that you're asking. As a teacher, it's important to keep your webcam as high as possible. If you're trying to connect, you want to make sure that you're looking at the webcam instead of looking at your computer or looking at the screen. Think about raising your computer up so that you can see it. It's at face level and eye level if it's lower than you are. Always you'll be thinking about a lot of check-ins, a lot of check-in questions, asking, at the 10-minute mark, I'm going to pause and give a question and have everybody talk about it so that we're not talking the whole time. You kind of noticed that with me today, trying to get people involved as opposed to just listening to me ram on for 45 minutes. Less is more in the virtual classroom. Our attitude is everything. If we don't think it's going to work, it's going to come across in the way that we're talking. Embracing active learning. So again, I think Pam was mentioning that in terms of trying to get the kids actively, or trying to get the students actively involved in doing some of this. How do we do that? If we're in an automotive class and we're outside of the classroom, say, can you actively go to your car and take some pictures of this part of this car, or can you find this part and make it like a scavenger hunt or something? Can you find this? Can you do that? And then, whenever you can, try to find tools online that you can use, because there's so many people like me. I've been teaching virtually for 17 years. that I've been out there and I've created a ton of different kinds of curriculum. You don't need to recreate that. And if this isn't a comfortable place for you to be, then use the videos that are online. Use the stuff that you can do to try to bring that in. Think about your lighting and sound. Think about this. I use the headset for a very specific reason, because I like the sound to be solid. My daughter's crying in the background because she didn't get to, hopefully you guys haven't heard too much of that, because she didn't get to watch TV this afternoon. And, you know, it's really important, especially if you're working from home. Check your background, what's behind you, what's on your computer screen when you're going to share your screen, what kind of light you have. If the light's behind you, you're going to look really blurry. If it's in front of you, it's going to help light you up. These are things that you can do to make sure. And then less is more, less is more, less is more. Constantly building community and connection before curriculum, and realizing that not only you, but also your students are struggling with the technology and struggling to learn in this capacity if this is new for them. So we want to give them grace. We want to give ourselves grace. We want to be able to think about that. But these are things that are really, they're ways to really connect with the kids online and to kind of invite them into this new way of learning, and to think about, you know, their own situation, to realize their own situation. And also, the last but not least, to set boundaries in your virtual classroom. I know we want to help, we're helping people, but as educators, it's important as well to set boundaries. We want to have consistent hours. We want to create a consistent routine. We want to do things that are exciting as best that we can, but we also want to understand that the situation is unique. But I wouldn't lower your standards too much when it comes to expectations in your classroom. You come dressed, you come prepared. You're not laying on your bed looking at me on a phone. It can be disorienting for other students as well. But you know, try as best as you can to bring yourself into that classroom. You can do this. You do it every single day in the concrete classroom. So it's just another thing. And when I started doing these, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, doing trainings and teaching online, I noticed that I was really fast, and I was trying to get so much information in, and it's a process. It's a process that you're going to pick up, and hopefully V-Day comes sooner than we think, and we'll all be back to meeting in the traditional classroom if that's the way it goes. I think that this hybrid model is going to continue, and I think that for most of us, getting used to it and finding ways to make it work for us is going to be really important as we go forward. Now, I think we have Odette. Yeah, she offered the resources to the Zoom group as well. I will be here next week. We'll be doing this again. If you'd like to be here, please join me. It'll be at the same, whatever time zone you're in, the same time next week. We'll be talking about some more tips that work in the virtual classroom. Obviously, Teddy will be sharing some more information from what's going on in the higher education side. I've really appreciated his feedback, because that's something that I haven't done for about 10 years. I used to work in community college, but I haven't been there in quite a while. So thank you, all of you, for everything you're doing. You're amazing. Keep up the great work. And if you need me, or you have any comments, please leave them in the chat box, or you can email me, Rusty. I'll write that into the chat box. If you have any questions for me, rusty@schooltoolstv.com. Send me an email. Thanks again. I really look forward to hopefully seeing you here again. And thanks for all you're doing. And that's School Tools. That's supposed to be school. I spelled it wrong. Thank you. Have a great day.